The storm had already started when Malik woke up to the sound of heavy boots outside his cell. The walls shook like thin tin, and the wind howled through the gaps in the roof. The guards shouted to each other over the roar of thunder. Malik didn't understand why they were in such a hurry until one of them opened the door and said, "Move him, now." They pulled him out without a word. Malik had been at the research outpost for only 3 days, accused of crossing a restricted zone. They said he had seen something he shouldn't have. He kept telling them he didn't know anything, but nobody listened. The air outside was thick with dust. The guards' flashlights cut through the orange haze. They walked fast toward a metal room at the far end of the outpost, a cage with bars thick as Malik's wrists. Inside, huddled in the corner, was a girl. Her hair was tangled, her skin covered in strange pale marks that seemed to glow when the lightning flashed. She didn't move when they opened the cage. "Put him in," one guard said. Malik froze. "With her orders," the man replied, and pushed him inside. The door slammed shut behind him. The lock clicked, and the sound of the storm swallowed everything else. Malik stood still, breathing slow. The girl didn't look human at first glance. She crouched low, her bare feet pressed against the floor, eyes wide like an animal ready to run. She watched him without blinking. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The air smelled like metal and rain. Then Malik slowly sat down, showing his empty hands. "It's okay," he said softly, even though he didn't believe it himself. She tilted her head, studying him. Her hands were small and shaking. When he took a deep breath, she copied him, in, out, slow, careful. Malik realized she was trying to understand him. The lights flickered. The wind hit the walls so hard that one of the bolts near the ceiling snapped loose and clattered to the floor. The girl jumped back, hitting the wall, and let out a low sound, not quite a scream, more like a growl mixed with fear. "It's okay," Malik said again, this time louder. "It's just the storm." But she didn't look at the roof. Her eyes darted toward the small window, where flashes of white light cut through the night. The wind was screaming, and then, just for a heartbeat, it stopped. Everything went quiet. Too quiet. The girl turned her face toward Malik, trembling. He could see the reflection of the lightning in her pupils, and something else. A faint blue glow ran under her skin, tracing the same strange symbols he had seen on the metal doors outside. He stepped closer, slowly. She didn't move away this time. Instead, she reached out a hand, uncertain, and touched the sleeve of his shirt. Her fingers were cold, like ice. Malik's heart pounded. He wanted to pull back, but something in her eyes stopped him. Then the lights snapped on again, bright and harsh. The guards outside shouted. One of them pointed a flashlight at the cage and froze. The girl was standing beside Malik now, her hand still holding his arm. Her marks glowed stronger in the light, forming clear lines across her shoulders and neck. "What the hell is that?" one of the guards whispered. The girl pressed closer to Malik, hiding behind him like a frightened child. The same guard raised his weapon. "Stop," Malik shouted. "She's scared." But the guard didn't lower it. His voice shook when he said, "You don't understand. That's not human." The girl made a small sound, a soft, high hum. The lights flickered again. Every monitor in the room showed the same flashing symbol, a circle crossed by a single line. Malik had seen that mark before. He couldn't remember where, but it made his chest tighten. The hum grew louder, almost like a song. And then the storm returned with full force. The walls rattled. A sheet of metal outside broke loose and slammed into the fence. Sparks rained down. The guards ran for cover. Malik crouched beside the girl, trying to shield her from the falling debris. She closed her eyes and pressed her forehead against his arm. For a second, he could feel her heartbeat, fast, desperate, but alive. When the storm eased again, the lights dimmed to a dull yellow. The guards looked shaken. One of them made the sign of a cross. Another muttered, "It's the same as the door." The same pattern. Malik looked up. The warning sign painted on the outpost door showed the exact same circle and line glowing on the girl's skin. He didn't know what she was, or why they had locked her away like this. But one thing was clear. Whatever danger they feared outside the cage was already inside it now. The girl opened her eyes and whispered something, just one sound, strange and broken, but it made Malik's blood run cold. It was his name. He stared at her, speechless. The wind howled again, and the lights flickered once more. The guards shouted from outside, but Malik didn't move. The girl's pale eyes were fixed on him, her glow pulsing in rhythm with the thunder, and then she smiled, the faintest, saddest smile, as if she knew him. The storm faded into silence, but the air inside the cage still trembled with leftover electricity. Malik could taste metal on his tongue, and his ears rang as if the thunder had moved inside his skull. The girl sat beside him now, knees pulled to her chest, her glowing marks slowly dimming until they looked like faint scars. Outside, the guards whispered. Malik could hear every word. "Keep the lights on," one said. "I told you she reacts to the dark," another replied. "You saw that glow, what if it spreads?" Their voices drifted away, replaced by the steady buzz of the generator. Malik's eyes stayed on the girl. She was small, maybe 15, maybe younger. Her hair stuck to her face, tangled and pale, as if bleached by years without sunlight. When he tried to speak, she flinched. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. She tilted her head again, just like before. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she made a low sound almost like the beginning of a tune. Malik realized it was the same rhythm he had used when trying to calm her during the storm. He smiled. "You remember that?" She blinked once, twice, and then copied his slow breathing again. It was strange how quickly trust was forming between them, like an invisible thread tightening with every breath. Malik leaned back against the cold wall and hummed a melody he hadn't thought about in years, a lullaby his mother used to sing when he was little. The sound filled the cage, soft and steady. The girl closed her eyes and rocked slightly. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then, from somewhere outside the room, came a high, sharp tone, a metallic beep that sliced through the silence. The girl's eyes flew open. She screamed. It wasn't human, a sound that rose and cracked and made Malik's bones ache. Hey, it's okay," Malik said, but she wasn't listening. She pressed her hands over her ears, shaking her head hard, her body jerking as if the tone itself hurt her. Malik jumped up and banged on the bars. "Turn that thing off," he shouted. The guards didn't react fast enough. He could hear one of them fumbling with the controls, the radio hissing louder. The girl let out another broken cry and fell to the floor, curling into a ball. Malik knelt beside her, his hands shaking. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her shoulder. "It's gone now. You're safe," he whispered. When the sound finally stopped, she was trembling all over. Her eyes were wide and glassy, but she looked at him as if she was trying to understand something. "Hurts," she said, the word rough and unsteady like it had never been spoken before. Malik froze. "You can talk." She frowned, as if confused by her own voice. "Hurts," she said again, softer this time, touching her temple. Then she pointed toward the radio room. Malik nodded slowly. "The sound. It hurts you." She didn't answer but crawled toward the small metal cup near the corner. She filled it from the pipe, dripping water into a bucket, and slid it toward him first. Malik blinked, surprised. Then he took it, drank, and handed it back. She copied him exactly. Sip, breath, sigh. The flickering light above them went out for a second, plunging the room into complete darkness. Malik felt her hand grab his arm immediately. He could feel her pulse racing under her skin. "It's okay," he murmured, though the dark made his own chest tighten. A few moments later, the generator sputtered back to life, and the dim yellow light returned. That was when Malik saw it. The marks on her skin had changed. They were glowing again, brighter than before, but now the shapes had formed symbols. Not random lines this time, real shapes, almost letters. He frowned and leaned closer. "What is that?" She didn't answer, only stared down at her arm as if seeing the marks for the first time herself. The glow faded slowly, leaving faint traces that looked almost burned in. Malik rubbed his own forehead. The symbol nagged at him. Something deep in his memory stirred, but he couldn't grab hold of it. He'd drawn something like that before, when he was a child. He'd dreamed of glowing lines and strange voices, of a circle and a single line through it. His mother used to laugh and say it was just a dream. Now, staring at the girl, Malik wasn't so sure. Hours passed. The wind outside softened to a whisper. The guards took turns sleeping. Malik stayed awake, listening to the hum of the generator and the girl's steady breathing beside him. Once, she reached out and touched his sleeve again. Her fingers traced a shape on the fabric, the same circle and line symbol. Malik's heart thudded in his chest. "Why that?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she pointed at him, then at the symbol glowing faintly on her own skin. Then, softly, she whispered something to broken syllables that made the air freeze between them. "Same. Same." Malik stared at her. "Same. What do you mean?" She only blinked, her expression innocent, confused, but certain. Then she lay down, curling against the wall, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Malik sat there long after she slept, watching the faint blue light under her skin fade like embers dying out. He didn't know who she was, what she was, but she wasn't a monster. Whatever pain she carried, it wasn't her fault. Outside the cage, the night stretched quiet and endless. Malik leaned his head back against the cold metal, trying to stay awake. His mind kept replaying her words, same, and the image of that glowing symbol. When he finally started to drift towards sleep, the radio in the next room crackled again. A voice came through the static, low and distorted, repeating a message over and over. "Containment breach detected. Symbol match confirmed." Malik's eyes snapped open. He turned toward the sleeping girl. The mark on her arm was glowing again, but this time, the same light was pulsing faintly under his own skin, just beneath the wrist where she had touched him. The morning light was weak and cold when Malik woke up. He didn't remember falling asleep. The hum of the generator had stopped, and in its place came the faint crackle of static from the radio room next door. He lifted his hand and froze. The faint blue mark from last night was still there on his wrist, glowing softly, like something alive beneath his skin. He tried to rub it off, but the glow only dimmed, not vanished. The girl was sitting across from him, watching. Her eyes followed every movement, her face calm, almost knowing. "Did you do this?" he asked in a whisper. She tilted her head, then pointed to her own arm, where the same symbol burned faintly, the circle and line. She touched her chest next, then his wrist, and said in her fragile voice, "Same." Malik swallowed hard. "What does it mean?" She didn't answer. She just looked at him, eyes soft, but haunted. The door suddenly clanged open. A new figure stepped inside, a woman in a brown jacket, dusty from travel, her badge swinging from her neck. Her name tag read Investigator Lane. She carried a file case and a folder thick with photos. "Malik Rahim," she said, voice calm but clipped. "I'm here to review the containment records, and I need to speak with you about what happened last night." Malik's mouth was dry. "What happened? You mean the storm or the glowing marks on her skin?" Lane didn't answer immediately. She crouched down beside the cage and studied the girl. "So it's true," she murmured. "They said she reacts to sound frequencies, but they didn't mention this." The girl stared at Lane, unblinking. Lane opened the folder and spread a few photographs on the floor. Malik leaned closer. Each photo showed pieces of twisted metal scattered across white salt flats, a crash site. On the metal were faint carvings, the same circle and line symbol. "Where did you find these?" Malik asked. "About 12 kilometers west," Lane said. "The wreckage dates back to the late 1980s. No aircraft was ever reported missing there." She paused, studying his reaction. "But you've seen this symbol before, haven't you?" Malik hesitated. His heart was pounding. "Yes," he said quietly. "When I was 10, my family lived near the ridge. There was a night, strange lights, a fire in the hills. My sister disappeared that same night." Lane's eyes lifted sharply. "You filed a report?" "My parents did," he said. "They said the file was sealed after the Army got involved." Lane opened another folder and slid out a piece of paper, a faded police record with his family's name on it. "It wasn't just sealed," she said. "It was transferred to a classified division of a research unit, the same unit that runs this outpost." Malik felt the ground tilt beneath him. He looked at the girl again, small, silent, her pale hair catching the light. Lane kept speaking, her voice low. "The records say a child was taken from that area, age 6 months. The file number ends with the same code on her wristband." Malik blinked. Wristband. Lane pointed to the girl's arm. Beneath the dirt and old scars, there was indeed a thin metal band. The girl flinched as Lane carefully lifted her arm. Malik saw faint letters etched into the metal, half worn away by time and rust. Lane cleaned the surface with a cloth. The letters became clearer. Mal-to-7. Malik single quotes S breath caught. His family name was Malik Rahim, and his missing sister's record number began with 27. He stumbled back. No, that's not possible. Lane's tone softened. I don't know what's possible anymore. But she's human. That much I'm sure of. The girl looked between them, her expression fragile, almost frightened. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out through the bars, her small hand trembling, and touched Malik's chest, right where his heart was beating fast. A faint hum filled the air. The circle on her arm glowed again, and this time, so did the mark on his wrist. The light pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. Lane stepped back, stunned. They're sensing, she whispered. It's like they share a frequency. Suddenly, the radio in the next room crackled. The same sharp tone from the night before stabbed through the speakers. The girl screamed, covering her ears, and Malik fell to his knees in pain. The sound cut straight through his head. Lane rushed to the control board, yanking the plug, and the tone died instantly. For a moment, there was only the sound of heavy breathing. Then Malik looked up and saw something strange. On the wall of the cage, burned into the metal, was the glowing outline of the same symbol, the circle and line. It pulsed once, then faded. Lane's voice shook. This isn't just trauma or memory. It's something deeper. She reached into her file case and pulled out another photograph. This one older, black and white. It showed a row of small children standing behind a chain-link fence, their eyes covered by dark lenses. On the back of their necks were faint glowing marks, just like the girls. Lane handed it to Malik. These were found in the old military archives. The caption says, Subject Group, Saltlight Program. Malik stared at the photo until his hands began to tremble. Salt light, a cold environment study, Lane said grimly. They tested light exposure on abandoned or orphaned children. Some didn't survive. The ones that did, they were transferred here decades ago. Malik felt his throat close. He looked at the girl again, at her soft breathing, her bruised arms, the quiet sadness in her eyes. This can't be her, he whispered. My sister was, but the girl interrupted him. She lifted her hand again and drew to shapes on the dusty floor between them, a circle and a straight line. Then, in a voice rough from disuse, she whispered the tune he had hummed the night before. It was the same lullaby his mother used to sing to him. The air left Malik's lungs. He couldn't speak. Lane's eyes widened as she stared at the symbols glowing faintly on the floor. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. The girl looked up, tears in her eyes, and said one word, broken, trembling, but clear. Brother. The lights flickered. The hum returned. The morning came with cold light and silent orders. Malik was still sitting on the floor, beside the girl when the guards marched in, their faces hidden behind masks. They didn't speak to him. They didn't look at her. They just read from a tablet, clipped words, robotic voices. Subject will be transferred at 0400 to Central Facility. No exceptions. Malik stood, his wrists sore from the steel cuffs. You can't move her. She's terrified of sound, of light. You'll kill her, no one answered. Two guards unlocked the cage and stepped in. The girl backed away fast, pressing herself into the corner. Her pale eyes darted from face to face, then to Malik. She reached for him, small hand trembling, lips shaping one word, stay. Malik's chest tightened. I'll come with you, he said quickly. Just don't hurt her. The lead guard grabbed his arm. You're not going anywhere near her again. Lane entered just then, holding a thick folder under her arm. That's not protocol, she said firmly. She's stabilized because of him. You separate them now, and she could go into shock. The guard hesitated. Ma'am, these are direct orders, then disobey them, Lane snapped. Or do you want another incident like last night? Silence. The guards exchanged glances. Finally, the leader cursed under his breath and lowered his weapon. Fine. He stays until the handoff. They left, the door clanging behind them. Lane turned to Malik, her expression tight. They're scared, she said quietly. And when people like them get scared, they destroy what they don't understand. Malik crouched beside the girl. We have to go, he whispered. She shook her head, her hair falling into her eyes. No, they'll take you somewhere worse, he said. I can't stop them unless we move now. The lights flickered again. The storm outside was building, reds and twisting across the desert horizon. Malik looked at Lane. If I open that lock. Lane didn't blink. You'll have maybe 20 minutes before they realize. He took that as permission. When the guard at the door stepped outside to smoke, Malik moved. He slipped the stolen keycard into the slot, praying the sound wouldn't draw attention. The light turned green. The lock clicked open. The girl didn't run at first. She looked at him, waiting. Malik offered his hand. Trust me, he whispered. After a heartbeat, she reached out and took it. They ran. The hallway was long, echoing with the hum of power lines and the wind pressing against the walls. Sirens hadn't gone off yet. Malik led her through the lower maintenance tunnels, where pipes dripped and the air smelled of rust and dust. Lane followed, covering their tracks in the access log. At the far end, they reached a heavy service door. Malik pushed, and cold night air hit their faces. The salt wind stung his eyes, but he didn't stop. The girl clung to his sleeve, coughing as the storm whipped her hair. They crossed the open flats toward a row of abandoned sheds near the ridge. Lightning flashed behind them, turning the desert into a sea of silver and shadow. Inside one of the sheds, Malik found a corner shielded from the wind. He wrapped the girl in an old thermal blanket. She was shaking, her breathing fast and shallow. Just a little longer, he murmured. You'll be safe soon. Lane stood by the door, scanning the horizon. They'll track the keycard, she said. We need to move before the drones go up. I can't, Malik said, looking at the girl. She's burning up. Lane knelt beside her and brushed her fingers over the girl's neck. Fever, she said, but not from infection. Her temperature spikes when her body reacts to stress. The girl's eyes fluttered open. Home, she whispered. Lane frowned. Home? She pointed weakly toward the horizon, the salt flats stretching endlessly west. Before they could question her, a distant mechanical hum rose over the wind. Malik turned. A search drone was cutting through the storm, its red light scanning the ground. Go. Lane hissed. They stumbled out the back door, running low. The drone's light swept past, just missing them. Malik grabbed a metal sheet and waved it high to create a false signal. The drone veered toward the reflected glare. They ducked behind a broken water tank until it passed. By the time they reached the edge of the flats again, the sky had gone black. They saw the outpost lights flicker miles behind, smaller and smaller, until they vanished. They stopped at a half-buried tent, one of the old medical stations from the previous expeditions. Malik laid the girl on the cot, her pulse rapid and shallow. Lane. She's getting worse, he said. Lane rummaged through the old supply box, finding a flashlight, a roll of gauze, and miraculously an old portable X-ray scanner. If she's reacting to something inside her, Lane said, this will show it. Malik held her still as the scanner hummed to life. The faint image flickered onto the dusty screen. At first, it showed ribs, collarbone, and faint outlines of tissue. Then something bright appeared. A small oval capsule lodged just below the girl's collarbone. What is that? Malik whispered. Lane zoomed in. Numbers appeared etched on the capsule's surface. 3640 for feet 0 inches N. 118 3 feet 0 inches W coordinates. She said softly. Somewhere in the western flats. Malik stared at the numbers. That's near the old bunker fields. Lane nodded grimly. If that capsule was implanted, then she's more than an experiment. She's a map. The girl stirred, mumbling something Malik almost couldn't catch. He leaned close. They said. Find the others. Lane froze. Others. The girl's hand slipped from his and went still, her breathing steadying into a weak rhythm. Malik looked at Lane. We're going to those coordinates. Lane exhaled. If we go there, we'll be hunted. But if she's right. Malik met her gaze. Then this isn't just her story. It's a graveyard full of them. Outside, the storm eased into a whisper. The red glow of the drone lights had disappeared. Malik pulled the blanket tighter around the girl. Tomorrow, he said. "We find the truth." Lane looked toward the horizon, a faint shimmer of lightning marking the spot where the coordinates would lead them. Dawn came quiet and gray, spreading thin light across the salt flats. Malik stood outside the ruined medical tent, staring at the numbers scribbled on Lane's notebook: -3640 for feet 0 inches N, 118 3 feet 0 inches W, the coordinates they had pulled from the capsule inside the girl's chest. The girl was asleep on a cot inside, wrapped in the last clean blanket they had. Her skin was cooler now, no longer burning with fever, but the faint glow beneath her collarbone still pulsed every few seconds, steady, like a signal waiting for an answer. Lane stepped up beside him, rubbing her eyes. "You haven't slept," she said. "Neither have you," Malik replied. She gave a small smile. "True, but we can't rest until we know what those coordinates mean. They're too exact to be random." Malik looked out at the horizon. "You think it's a lab?" "I think it's where this started," she said quietly. They packed quickly. Lane found an old desert buggy behind the shed, its engine half buried in sand. After an hour of work and a few curses, the motor finally coughed to life. Malik lifted the girl into the back seat, covering her with the blanket. She didn't wake, but her hand clutched his sleeve even in sleep. They drove west. The land stretched flat and empty, white salt fading into rust-colored dust. The wind was sharp enough to sting their faces. After a few miles, the buggy began to rattle, fighting against the uneven ground. "You sure this thing will make it?" Malik shouted over the noise. "Define make it," Lane shouted back. He almost laughed, but then he saw it. A dark mound rising from the flats, like a buried skeleton. A half-buried concrete dome, cracked through the middle. Faded black letters still clung to its side. Saltbase-9. Lane slowed the buggy to a crawl. "Looks abandoned, or hidden on purpose," Malik muttered. The air felt heavier here, humming faintly like distant electricity. When Malik helped the girl out of the vehicle, she opened her eyes for the first time since morning, her gaze fixed on the bunker. "Home," she whispered. Lane and Malik exchanged a look. They found a rusted door half buried under debris. Lane kicked away the sand and pressed the control panel. It blinked to life with a faint red glow. "Still powered," Lane murmured. "Someone's been maintaining this." The girl stepped forward and placed her hand on the scanner. The red light turned green instantly. The door hissed open. Malik felt a chill crawl up his neck. "She's part of the system," he said. Inside, the air smelled like old metal and dust. Their footsteps echoed down narrow corridors lined with flickering lights. They passed rooms filled with broken equipment, empty cages, and rusted beds with straps. "This was a containment lab," Lane said, voice shaking. "Look at the restraints." Malik stopped by a wall covered in photographs sealed under cracked glass. They were old, black and white, showing small children sitting in rows, staring at cameras with blank eyes. The same glowing marks traced their necks and arms. He swallowed hard. "They used kids," Lane nodded. "They called it the Salt Light Program, early bioluminescent experiments for cold adaptation. But this," she gestured around, "this isn't science. This is cruelty." The girl wandered to the far end of the hall and stopped in front of a steel door. Without hesitation, she pressed her palm against the pad again. The lock clicked. Beyond the door was a room that looked untouched, rows of machines still humming softly. And on one table, stacks of dusty data reels. Lane wiped one clean and squinted at the label. "Transfer logs, unit to 7A-1989 to 7A. Malik whispered. "That's the same number on her band." Lane's hands trembled as she set up a player from the control console. The reel spun, and a woman's voice filled the room, faint, tired, but clear. "Subject to 7A shows high light resonance. Genetic link found with test subject to 7B, male sibling, age 6. Parental retrieval attempt logged. Both to be separated. Reconditioning initiated." Malik froze. His throat went dry. Lane looked at him in disbelief. "Male sibling," she repeated softly. The voice on the tape continued. "Bond response detected between siblings. If bond strengthens, return to source facility for reset. Unit to be marked as feral if recovery fails." Lane slammed the stop button. They labeled her feral because she resisted programming. They erased her identity. Malik could barely breathe. He stepped back, his hands trembling. The girl was standing by the far table now, staring at an old photograph lying face down. She picked it up and turned it toward him. It was worn and faded, but he recognized it instantly. A picture of a young woman holding two small children. His mother. Malik's vision blurred. He sank to his knees. She was real, he whispered. She was my sister. The girl knelt beside him, touching his face gently, like she was trying to remember him through the years of pain. Lane watched them silently, her eyes wet. We need to get this evidence out, she said. These tapes, they're proof of everything. But before Malik could answer, the lights flickered red. A low alarm began to hum through the bunker. What's that? Lane said, voice tight. A mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. Unauthorized access detected. Retrieval team dispatched. Malik's pulse spiked. They're coming. Lane grabbed the reels and stuffed them into her bag. We need to move now. The girl tugged on Malik's sleeve, pulling him toward a tunnel on the right. She seemed to know the way. They ran through the corridor as heavy footsteps echoed behind them, metal boots striking concrete. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Old, broken cages lined the walls. The girl stopped suddenly and pointed at one. Inside, faint glowing marks shimmered on the walls. Others, she whispered. Lane turned her flashlight toward the marks. They weren't random, they were handprints. Small, glowing handprints, dozens of them. Malik felt his stomach twist. They didn't just experiment on her. The footsteps grew louder. Lane pulled her pistol. Move. They dashed toward an exit hatch at the far end. Malik pushed the girl up first, then climbed after her as Lane covered them. A gunshot rang out, sparking off the metal beside her head. She ducked and scrambled out just as the door slammed behind them. Outside, the salt wind hit them again. The sky had darkened with the coming storm. Malik turned to Lane, gasping for breath. They'll erase everything, she said. The outpost, this place, all of it. Then we make sure the world hears first, Malik said. He looked at the girl, who was staring back at the bunker. Her glowing marks flickering like candlelight. The sky split open with a roar. The first drone fell from the clouds like a metal hawk, its red light slicing through the sandstorm. Malik grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her toward the buggy. Lane slammed the engine into gear, tires spinning on the salt. The air filled with the buzz of propellers and the shimmer of red lasers dancing across the ground. They found the signal. Lane shouted over the wind. They're tracking the implant. The girl pressed her hands against her chest, her breath short and frightened. Malik wrapped an arm around her and shouted, we'll get it out, I promise. The buggy tore across the flats, bouncing over cracks and ridges. Behind them, the bunker was swallowed in dust and flame. A drone fired a sonic burst, a low, thunderous pulse that shattered the rear windshield. Malik ducked, covering the girl's head. Lane veered hard to the left, skidding behind a rise of rock. Out. She yelled, we can't outrun them in this. They jumped from the vehicle just as another sonic wave hit it, flipping the buggy over in a burst of salt and smoke. Malik grabbed Lane's pack and the girl's hand. They ran for a nearby trench, the remains of an old dried riverbed. When they ducked beneath the ridge, the noise dimmed. Malik pressed his back against the cold rock, panting. Lane crouched beside him, pulling out her small field knife. We take it out, she said. Malik blinked. What? The capsule. If we don't remove it, they'll follow her until she dies. The girl was shaking, her glow pulsing faster now. Malik looked at her, terrified but trusting, and nodded. Do it. Lane tore a strip of cloth, cleaned the blade with alcohol, and steadied her hand. Hold her, she said. Malik cradled the girl gently as Lane made a small incision just below her collarbone. The girl gasped, eyes wide, gripping Malik's wrist hard enough to leave marks. It's okay, he whispered over and over, his voice breaking. It's almost over. The faint metallic glint appeared beneath the blood. Lane pinched it out, a tiny silver capsule no bigger than a coin. The instant it left her body, the glow in her skin dimmed to a soft shimmer, and she went still. The drones above changed direction, scattering like bees losing their queen. Lane threw the capsule as far as she could across the salt plain. A moment later, a red beam locked onto it and the sky erupted in fire. The three of them lay there, breathless, surrounded by drifting dust. Malik wiped sweat from his forehead. "You did it," Lane nodded, hands trembling. "She's safe for now." The girl's eyelids fluttered open. Her voice was weak but clear. "Gone, gone," Malik said. "You're free." She smiled faintly, the first real smile he had ever seen from her. Then she passed out in his arms. They stayed hidden in the trench until nightfall. When the wind finally calmed, they made their way to an abandoned radio tower a few miles away. Lane managed to power up the control board using the spare battery pack from her bag. "We can transmit the files," she said, her voice low and determined. "If we broadcast the recordings from the bunker, the photos, the logs, someone will listen." Malik sat beside the girl, who was wrapped in a blanket and breathing steadily again. "They'll erase it before it spreads," he said. "Not if we send it everywhere at once," Lane replied. "I've done this before." She started uploading the data, connecting the reels she had saved. Old voices filled the room, the cold tones of scientists describing children as units, as subjects, as failures. Malik clenched his fists. "Don't stop," he said. But then the signal cut out. The screen flashed red. "Remote override detected." Lane's eyes widened. "They're inside the system. They're wiping the files." Malik slammed his fist on the console. "We can't let them." A faint hum filled the air, the same low frequency that had hurt the girl before. The speakers trembled. The girl stirred and whimpered, pressing her hands to her ears. "Turn it off." Malik shouted. Lane tried to kill the power, but the switches wouldn't respond. The hum grew louder, crawling into their bones. Malik grabbed a wrench and smashed the control panel. Sparks flew, and the sound died instantly. The room fell into silence. Malik turned. The girl was crying, silently, her hands shaking. He knelt beside her, guilt heavy in his chest. "Hey, it's okay. It's gone now." She reached out and touched his face. Then she pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "Brother." He froze. The word didn't sound broken this time. It was whole, full of meaning. Lane looked away, pretending to check the antenna. But her voice was soft. "You two are connected. It's not just blood. It's frequency. The same resonance that let her calm the storm. It's in both of you." Malik held his sister close. For the first time in years, he felt something like peace, but it lasted only seconds. A spotlight cut through the night from the horizon. Then another, dozens. "They found us," Lane whispered. Malik lifted his head. "We can't run anymore." He stood, facing the approaching lights. "If they want her, they'll have to take me too." Lane stepped beside him, weapon ready. "Then they'll have to go through both of us." The girl moved between them, standing barefoot on the cracked ground. Her glow returned, brighter, stronger, spreading from her chest to her arms. The air vibrated around her. "Wait," Malik said. "What are you doing?" Her voice was calm now, almost serene. "Protect." The wind began to rise. The sand lifted into spirals, swirling around her. The glow from her skin pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, expanding outward like waves in water. The lights from the approaching vehicles flickered and died. Radios went silent. The hum of engines sputtered out one by one. Lane stared in awe. "She's shutting them down." The girl's eyes were closed, her face peaceful. Malik stepped closer, trying to steady her, but she whispered, "Stay back." Her body trembled with light, brighter and brighter, until everything around them turned white. Then, silence. When the glow faded, the desert was empty. The vehicles were gone. The drones lay scattered like dead insects, their lights extinguished. The air was still. The girl collapsed into Malik's arms, unconscious but breathing. Lane's voice was shaky. What did she do?" Malik looked down at his sister, this fragile, glowing girl who had survived everything they had done to her, and whispered, "She gave us a chance." He carried her back inside the tower. Lane watched the sky, where faint red lights flickered again far in the distance. "They'll come back," she said. "I know," Malik replied. He looked at the girl's peaceful face. "But next time, we'll be ready." Asterisk. The first light of dawn broke like a quiet promise across the salt flats. After a night of wind, fire, and silence, the desert looked almost peaceful. But Malik knew peace was only pretending. Beneath that calm horizon, something was still coming for them. He sat beside his sister, who was still asleep on a blanket near the broken radio tower. Her breathing was soft, even. The faint blue glow under her skin had faded to a pale shimmer, like moonlight that refused to die. Malik brushed a strand of hair from her face. She looked almost human now, almost normal, but her skin carried the ghosts of everything they'd seen. Lane stood a few feet away, adjusting the tower's antenna with one hand and holding her tablet in the other. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. "I've got power," she said. "The backup battery's barely holding, but it'll work long enough to send one last transmission." Malik turned to her. "To who?" "To everyone," Lane said, her voice calm and certain. "The world. Governments, universities, the press, everyone with a signal. Once I start, they can't bury this again." Malik nodded slowly. "Then do it." Lane sat down and began to upload the files, the recordings from the bunker, the photos, the test logs, the names. The machine clicked and hummed as the data streamed into the sky. Outside, the horizon flickered with faint lights. Malik thought they were drones at first, but as the sun climbed higher, he realized they were helicopters, real ones, military, maybe 10 or 12 miles away. "They'll jam the signal," he said. Lane kept typing. "Not before it's too late." Inside the tower, the girl stirred. She sat up slowly, blinking at the light. "Bright," she murmured. Malik smiled. "Yeah, the storm's gone." She tilted her head, eyes following the golden horizon. "Feels warm." He helped her to her feet. She looked stronger now, color in her cheeks, calm in her breathing. But there was something else in her expression, something almost sad. "What's wrong?" Malik asked. She touched his wrist gently. "They're still calling." He frowned. "Who?" "The others." Before he could ask more, Lane's laptop beeped. "Upload complete," she said, breathless. "Every file, every photo, it's all live." She turned the screen toward them. News outlets had already begun to share the story. The words flashed across the feed. "Exposed, secret human experiments under salt light program." Malik felt something shift in his chest. A weight he'd carried for years finally beginning to crack. "It's over," he said. But Lane didn't look relieved. "No," she whispered. "Look, on the live feed, people were reacting, some horrified, some denying it, others asking questions. But one comment caught her attention. It was short and chilling. 'We are still here.' The salt light never ended. Before Malik could speak, the wind changed direction. A deep hum rolled through the ground beneath their feet. The girl's glow flared suddenly, brighter than ever. "Something's coming," Lane said, grabbing her bag. "We have to move." But Malik didn't move. He looked at his sister and realized she wasn't afraid. She stood tall now, her small frame glowing like a lantern in the rising sun. "No," she said quietly. "It's not coming for me. It's coming for you." Malik's blood ran cold. Lane turned sharply. "What do you mean?" The girl took a step back, her eyes fixed on Malik. "You were the other one. The bond, they marked you too. You're still connected." Malik shook his head. "That's impossible." Before he could finish, the faint light under his own skin began to pulse. The same circle and line symbol glowed faintly on his wrist. Lane whispered, "Oh God." The hum grew louder. The sunlight shimmered strangely, bending around them like heat waves. The girl reached out and grabbed Malik's hands. "I can stop it," she said softly. "But I can't stay." Malik's throat tightened. "No, we just got you back." Her eyes were clear now, calm like the surface of still water. "You freed me. Now I free you." Lane tried to step forward, but the wind pushed her back. Dust began to spiral around the siblings, rising higher and higher. The radio tower creaked, its antenna bending under invisible pressure. Malik held her close, his voice breaking. "Don't do this," she smiled faintly. "You'll hear me again, brother." In the light, then the glow expanded, pure, blinding white. Malik could feel warmth against his chest, her heartbeat against his. And then, nothing. When he opened his eyes, the storm was gone. The sky was clean and blue. The hum had vanished. The glowing mark on his wrist was gone too, replaced by a faint scar. Lane was kneeling a few feet away, shielding her eyes. "Malik," she called. He looked down. The girl was gone. Only the blanket remained, and in its center lay the small silver capsule, cracked open and empty. Malik picked it up. Inside, a thin strip of metal was engraved with a single word, HOME. He stared at it for a long time, tears cutting lines through the dust on his face. "She's gone," he whispered. Lane stood beside him. "Maybe not gone," she said quietly. "Maybe. She went where they can't reach her anymore." Malik turned his face toward the sun. The morning light hit the salt flats, turning them into a sea of gold. In the distance, the helicopters were circling, but this time, they didn't come closer. They hovered, then turned away. "They know it's over," Lane said. "The world saw everything." Malik nodded slowly. "Then let's finish what she started." They stayed until full daylight, recording new evidence, marking coordinates of other bunkers mentioned in the files. Before they left, Malik buried the capsule in the sand and pressed the symbol, a circle and line, above it with his finger. When he stood, he felt lighter, not whole, but alive. Lane looked at him, her voice soft. "What now?" Malik smiled faintly, looking toward the horizon. "Now we find the others." As they walked away, the wind picked up behind them, swirling across the buried capsule. For a moment, just before the sand covered it completely, a faint blue glow pulsed beneath the surface once, twice, like a heartbeat. Ending note: the world would remember the Salt Light program as one of humanity's darkest secrets. But for Malik, the truth was simpler. His sister wasn't an alien or an experiment. She was proof that even after years of pain, something pure, love, family, light, could still survive. And somewhere beyond the reach of wires, walls, and war, the feral girl who once glowed in the dark finally slept in peace, under the long daylight she had never known before.